Hi, everybody. Andy Nichols here, the Backwards Traveler, coming to you with a special episode tonight here on my own channel to recap a really, truly wonderful night here for me as a Beatles podcaster, YouTuber. Tonight, we were afforded the opportunity for an invitation to an exclusive listening event in New York City for Power to the People, the forthcoming box set coming out at the end of the week to celebrate what would have been John's 85th birthday. And also Sean Lennon's 50th birthday. Yeah. Excuse me, but I'm still a little bit numb from the whole experience. It was my first invitation to one of these things. And I'll get to the guest list and who was there. They've had these for a long time. Friends of mine that were there tonight have gone to these for years. When the Beatles have launched things, they've had these kind of private listening things. And I've heard all about them. But now I got invited to go to one of them. And this kind of comes hot on the heels of receiving the box set. As you know, Simon Hilton, the VP of Multimedia Projects for the Lennon Estate, saw our episode on Sometime in New York City with me, Tony, and Kyle. And shortly after that, contacted all of us individually and sent us a copy of the box. Amazing. And corresponded with Simon a little bit. And he really thanked us for what we do. Yeah, so a couple days ago, I received an email from Tim Plumley, who is the VP of Media and Artist Relations at UME, inviting me to a screening, a listening party for Power to the People in New York City in kind of Dolby Atmos surround, which is what they do when they have these Beatles and solo Beatles events. The sound is the thing, right? Small theater, less than 100 people were there. Doors were at 5:30. They let us in at 6, submitted our name. I was allowed a +1. Of course, the MVP came along with me. Yeah, so it was at the Dolby Screening Room in New York City, 55th and 6th. Quick little short drive here from New Jersey. Got there, went to dinner, and who do we see right away? My frenemy, Joe Mayo, of all people, comes right up to us as we're sitting there. His good friend and a friend of mine, Robert S., who we've seen at fests over the years, great guy. And nice to see him again. Shot the shit for a few minutes, and then we walked over, gave our names, and walked right in. And boom, there it was. It was like a fest kind of all over again with, I would say, half the people that were there, I knew easily. So walked in, Tom Frangione, collaborators in the Beatles content creator community, Ken Michaels, Darren DeVivo, Mitch Axelrod, who I've been chatting with recently, and as recently as Sunday after the Paul concert in Vegas, and we were chatting, he was there. And Mitch has been going to these things for a long time because Mitch is a well-connected guy, and he's been going to these for a while. So it was nice to kind of see him there. First time I actually met him in the flesh, Rob Leonard, who I've met before, Vinyl Benji of Instagram fame, Skylar Moody of TikTok fame. As you know, she's well represented and connected by the Lennon Estate. And hot on the heels of his show Sunday night in New York City, Jeff Slate, who the MVP and my parents saw doing a Lennon tribute show just on Sunday. So he was there again. Mark and Carol Lapidus. So everybody kind of in the New York City area, in the kind of Beatles content creation community, no matter if you're a YouTuber, podcaster, Instagram, TikToker, radio DJ, everybody was there. It was really cool. And then there was Sean and his girlfriend, who I believe her name is Charlotte, hanging out. Very cool, very chill vibe. And shortly after 6, we were ushered into a very small theater. Again, somebody asked me what's the style of the speakers. I don't really know. They didn't tell us the specifics on it, but it was surround sound, and the sound was good. And I've sat with the box for a while, as you know. I've had it for about 3 weeks, so I'm pretty familiar with it now. Everything that's on it, I've listened to at least once through over. Not so much I haven't gotten through the home demos yet, but the live stuff and the album proper, the reimagined New York City, I heard. So we were treated to like a 1-hour hybrid of live performances, just audio, and then kind of like slideshow type stuff. So it kicks off right away with Come Together from the 1-to-1, Instant Karma, Well, Don't Worry Kyoko, Cold Turkey. That was all from, obviously the show, the 1-to-1 concert with the Elephant's Memory. And in attendance tonight was Gary Van Syok of Elephant's Memory, as well as Bob Gruen, the famous photographer who worked with John and Yoko for many, many years and had documented their lives so well. The whole thing was about an hour. And then they just kind of cut to select tracks from the reimagined New York City. So we heard New York City, we heard Sunday Bloody Sunday, and I believe and then they gave you a kind of an evolution documentary of Attic Estate, and they kind of just had tape boxes coming up on the screen. So there was some visual performances as well, but they were tacked on at the first half of the show. But the sound was incredible. And if you've ever gone to one of these Dolby Atmos premieres, yeah, it's very intimate, very small, and the sound is really good. For just when it was just playing, just the audio, there was nothing on screen. All that they were showing was kind of the lenticular lens photo of John and Yoko. Some of the swag they gave out tonight, a little tote bag. And this was like the image that they just had up whenever there was non-video playing, which was cool. And then, of course, they played the Sunday Bloody Sunday video, which has been up for a while, which is a little depressing, if I'm being honest with you, but it's the truth. There's a lot of war, and it's sad, and it's depressing, but it's in your face, and that's exactly what John and Yoko did. And that's what they do. And it was present too. If you watch that video, it goes all the way up to present day. And then I think they came back and did some audio, and we heard Angela, which if you've got the Give Me Some Truth box from 2020, you already knew how that was going to sound. So we heard Angela, and then it closed with Imagine from the one-to-one concert. So it was really nice. And then after the presentation, we had about 25 minutes of Q&A with a gentleman whose name I did not get down, talking with Bob Gruen, Simon Hilton, and Gary Van Sciac. And that was a real joy because Bob Gruen and Gary Van Sciac had some really wonderful memories to share about this time, recording the album, staying up late, partying too much. Bob told a story about how one night after a session for recording sometime in New York City, the whole band went out to eat at some Chinese restaurant, and nobody had any money, and John and Yoko didn't have any money, so they had to call their assistant, and he had to come and pay the bill, and it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and they kept drinking and partying anyway. Really cool stuff. One of the questions was Gary, what was the first thing that you guys played together as a band? And he said Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which was cool. He talked about how he didn't really want to play any Beatles music at all, and that when he walked in and heard them rehearsing come together for the one-to-one, he was so elated because he wanted to hear them do Beatles stuff, but John was just kind of really focusing on his own stuff at the time. Oh yeah, there was some also good video clips there of John and Yoko and Frank Zappa doing Well, Baby Please Don't Go, which I believe was from Ann Arbor. And that was in color too, by the way. You've seen some of that footage before. I was talking to Rob Leonard about this. I've seen that footage, but it's only ever been in black and white. And now it was in color, which was cool. Video performance of Yoko doing Sisters Oh Sisters, and that was from Harlem. So yeah, there was live footage intercut from one-to-one, some of the other live stuff from the time that's represented this entire box set, sprinkled throughout the whole thing with audio chunks of the album dropped in. And then there's just a quick Q&A with those guys, and and again, Bob Gruen, I mean, if he doesn't have a book, he might, I don't know. He should, because he's got some stories. And even somebody in the audience yelled out and said, Bob, you need your own show. Which I was happy to hear him talk. I mean, if anybody has stories to tell, Bob Gruen can certainly tell them. And it was such an honor to sit in that, small cinema with Sean Lennon, just, a row ahead of me with his girlfriend, watching, bobbing along, having a good time. And so the film ends, and they start the Q&A, and then Simon Hilton interrupts the gentleman doing the Q&A, and he's sorry. He goes, I've got to interrupt you. You're doing a good job, and he brings out a birthday cake, and the whole cinema sang happy birthday to Sean. It was really sweet. And he got up, and he blew the candles out, and then they brought the cake back out. They finished the Q&A, and then they dismissed us to kind of like the outside waiting area where there were more refreshments and cut up cake. And that was where I had my moment, where I got a chance to talk to Sean Lennon for a few minutes. He was talking to anybody that wanted to talk to him. There was not that many people there at all. So the way we just kind of exited, Simon and him were there taking photos with Bob Gruen, and we just happened to be in front of them. And then that kind of broke up, and I just said, okay, I'll just go right up to him and just have a quick chat with him and just tell him thanks. And I thanked him for preserving his parents' musical legacy, for enhancing it. I thanked him for the box and Simon. And I did see Simon as well, too, after quickly. And Simon Hilton could not have been more appreciative. And Sean couldn't be either. And I just said, Sean, introduced myself. I said, my name is Andy Nichols. I said, I'm a Beatles podcaster. I said, and I just said, thanks for preserving your parents' legacy and enriching it. And thanked him a lot for this release. But I really thanked him for Mind Games because, as you all know, if you've been following the channels that I'm on, that album has spoken to me for many, many years, for many, many reasons. And I had a few minutes with him and I said, Sean, that package, for an album that a lot of people just kind of push to the side, you made such a special album for me, even greater by giving it that treatment. And he was like, thanks, man. Thanks a lot. Such a humble, genuine guy. He goes, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to kind of put, it's Mind Games. We wanted to put all kinds of puzzles inside of it and make it fun for people to discover and let them discover things 20 years from now. And I said, Sean, I've had the box for about a year and a half. And I said, I'm still discovering things about it. And we talked about the maps, the Tokyo map, the New York map, and he's nodding his head and he's smiling. So, of course, me and the MVP, we just said, hey, can we take a quick pic? So the MVP, got her phone out and she snapped this great pic of me and Sean Lennon. His face looked serious there, but he could not have been more happy and chill just to talk to me for a couple minutes. And then I told him a quick story about how our fathers' paths had crossed because my dad saw John once in the early 70s in the Village. And he just said, thanks for the music. And John said, thanks. And it was just so awesome. And he goes, oh, little did they know that we would be here right now. That's what he said. And that was just so humbling. It's so down to earth. And said thanks and went about my night. And, he was talking to everybody else in the room and working the room, but it was so awesome. So, Sean, thank you for a few minutes, man. I really appreciate it. I can't believe it still to think that Sean's only about 5 years older than me, which I said to him and he was like, well, thanks a lot. But then Heidi said, I'm 5 years older than you. So it was fine. But he was just so humble and just a real guy. And he just was so appreciative of the work. And all of us that continue to support it, which is what Simon was echoing too. Simon was like, look, he goes, we're one big family. And he, again, was so genuine and thankful. And I said, thank you for the box. I really appreciate it. And he goes, we're one big family. We're just carrying it on. And that is the message that his estate gives out. And that feeling was so evident tonight at that private listening event for Power to the People. It was so special. And it was done before you knew it. That was it. We left. So that was my first one. And I hope I get a chance to go to a few more because they are special occasions to get together, to see people you've worked with, to meet new people, to thank people that put years of work into these things. And I can tell you here too, Simon confirmed that Walls and Bridges is coming out in 2027, and there's more in the archives to come down the pike. So that was exciting. So so they gave us this little bag. There's some magnets and stickers and stuff in there too. And it was just awesome. And this is all on the heels of Lennon birthday season, as I like to call it, every early October. John would have been 85 and Sean is going to be 50 in 2 days' time. So, and I wished him happy birthday as well when I talked to him. And Heidi did too. And yeah, it capped an already fun night just to get 3 minutes with Sean Lennon and just, again, shoot the shit with him, guy to guy. Nothing's better than that, man. Nothing. Genuine. So yeah, that's the recap. The box set's coming out. Those of you that don't have it yet, I'm sure you're going to be looking forward to it when it hits your doorsteps on the 10th. I think you'll enjoy it. It is the most maligned period in John's solo career. And I think that the estate has done a good job of kind of putting a bow on something that's hard to kind of encapsulate in one box. They've taken the 1-to-1. They've taken some time in New York City. They've reimagined it. We know that. The song's not there. It is what it is. They wanted it. The powers that be didn't. What can you do? What can they do? They're giving us the most they can. Slew of demos, 90-something tracks. All these things chock full in a box. They're giving you value for money. I wish other estates followed suit because they get it right. Value for money. 7, 8, 9, 10 discs box sets that go through the gamut. For a man who's got 10 albums in his career. So again, kudos to the estate. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, Yoko. So that's it for me here tonight for the Backwards Travel, the recap of the Power to the People kind of private listening event. Can't wait to go to another one sometime soon. Hitting the road again in about 2 weeks' time for the second leg of my Maca tour. I just got back from Vegas on Sunday. Paul on Vegas on Saturday. Now Sean Lennon on a Tuesday. My head's spinning a little bit still. So the Paul tour continues, and I'll be in Minneapolis and to look for some live content here, recaps on hands, and recaps on two legs as well. So everybody out there, thanks for tuning in tonight. Power to the people. Happy birthday, Sean. Happy birthday, John. And thank you. See you soon.